Alright, so I know what you're thinking. We're barely past a quarter of the way through the season, so why on earth am I already jumping on the driver prediction hype train? Well, the answer to that is fairly simple. Views. And yes, I really am that vain. Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1, the channel whose upload schedules are apparently as consistent as Mercedes race pace this season. But here I am, and with a few contracts being announced over the last few weeks, I thought we'd have a go at predicting where everyone else will line up on the 2022 Formula 1 grid. Now, before I start, I do always like to have a look at what I predicted last year. So I'm going to go with Alex to continue in that seat for 2021, but all the rumours currently point Mick to Alfa Romeo. As interesting as it would be to see a Russian driver in an American team, part of me feels like politics could play a role in ILOC getting that seat instead next year. Okay, so maybe don't put any bets on these. Where better to start then than with 7-time champions Mercedes, who currently field a GOAT, and whatever it shats out this morning. Though there are doubts surrounding Lewis's commitment to the team after this year, personally I can't see him leaving the Silver Arrows come the end of the season. Hamilton seems more fired up than usual this year, where he's had his toughest championship rival yet in Max Verstappen and Red Bull. So regardless of the final result in 2021, I can see him signing a similar one-year extension like he did at the end of 2020. Valtteri Bottas on the other hand, well, the man is in the mud right now. Despite a pole in Portimao and a strong Monaco race, at least before his tyre turned out to be more clingy than that annoying friend you have at the bar, the Flying Finn seems to have taken the plane bound for F1 retirement. I mean, the guy was literally passed by the Alfa Romeos in Baku. Mate, it's literally Jesus and a guy that doesn't care anymore. Like, come on. My mini rant over, it looks like Bottas could cause Mercedes to lose their first Constructors' Championship since 2013. And after George Russell's phenomenal performance in Sakhir, as well as his strong showings for Williams this season, don't be surprised to see the Brits confirmed alongside Hamilton in the very near future. I mean, I guess I could also bring back Furline, but sorry, no, who am I kidding? Next up, let's look at Red Bull, who have Max Verstappen tied down to the end of time and Sergio Perez's contract expiring at the end of the year. Frankly, the only man I see being able to contend for that seat is Yuki Tsunoda. But after his, shall we say, questionable start to the season, I can't see Red Bull making the same mistake of promoting drivers too early for a third time in a row. That said, this is Red Bull. Perez, though, for me, has already shown enough after his great races in Bahrain and Monaco, and obviously that win in Azerbaijan. So I think it's a fairly safe bet that Perez and Verstappen stay together next year. The next few teams are pretty easy. Ferrari have Leclerc and Sainz locked down under contract for 2022 already, and after their strong beginning to 2021, I see no reason for that lineup to change just yet. And it's a similar picture at McLaren, with Ricciardo on a 2-year deal and Norris extending his stay at the team earlier on this year. If you want an analogy, Lando is to McLaren like Romain Grosjean is to catching fire. Basically, I can see Lando staying at Woking for a long time now, as he's really got a strong team around him right now. Moving on, let's talk about Aston Martin, who picked up their first podium with Sebastian Vettel at Baku, and despite some early doubts, I'm pretty confident that Seb will stay on with that team into next year as well, with his love of the sport reignited after Ferrari basically neglected him over 2020. I don't think we really need to talk about his teammate because, well, it's Lance Stroll, and he could keep his seat even if he drove like Nikita Mazepin all year. Next up, we have Alpine, and this is a tricky one. Fernando Alonso is under contract for next year already, and though the start of the season has been comparable to that of his cycling accident at the beginning of the year, I don't think he'll be going anywhere in 2022. Alongside him though, things are a bit more difficult, and at the start of the season I was convinced that Esteban Ocon would be yeeted from the team to make way for Pierre Gasly, but now I'm just not so sure. Though Gasly has been a standout for AlphaTauri this season, Ocon hasn't done badly for Alpine this year either, and in a shock twist has actually been pacier than Alonso over most of the season so far. Pierre is a good option for the French outfit, but they haven't really got any reason to ditch Esteban either. We could mention the Alpine Driver Academy, but as we all know by now, the chances of them signing a junior are lower than me losing my virginity in 2022. So I'm going to say Alpine stick with Alonso and Ocon right now. And lo and behold, in the making of this video, he's already signed an extension until 2024, meaning I just slag myself off for no reason whatsoever. Anyway, with 6 of the 10 teams now covered, let's look at AlphaTauri, who are also in a bit of a predicament when it comes to its drivers. They currently field Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, one of whom has been on the pace all season, and the other whose form has been up and down like one of those shitty pop-up roller coasters. Red Bull nonetheless have praised both, which, if you go off past evidence, seems to suggest that both will end up fired at the end of the season. But in all seriousness, I think Yuki will most likely get one more chance in 2022 to show the team what he can do. Typically, Red Bull will give its juniors at least a couple of years in F1 with AlphaTauri. Well, unless your name is Brendan Hartley. As for Gasly, the team will find it hard to justify letting him go, especially after his P3 finish in Baku. However, we've also got to remember that this is effectively a training ground for potential Max Verstappen slaves, and it's fairly clear that Pierre won't be back in a Red Bull at any point in his career. Add to that the fact that we have 3 rapid Red Bull juniors in F2 right now, in Yuri Vips, Liam Lawson and Jehan Daruvala, and you've got to wonder if Helmut Marko would take a gamble and promote one of them instead. Personally though, this is how I see it working out. If either Lawson, Daruvala or Vips wins F2 this year, then they'll get the call up to F1 in 2022, most likely replacing Gasly. As hard as that is to say. However, if neither of them manage to claim the F2 crown, I can see Red Bull keeping them there for another year and retaining their current lineup of Yuki and Pierre. So, for clarity's sake, I'm going to say Pierre and Yuki will continue together in AlphaTauri into 2022. Looking back at my predictions so far then, you'll probably notice that I've been, well, a bit boring. And yeah, I kind of have, but that's about to change, don't worry. Next up, we move from AlphaTauri to Alfa Romeo. And though I feel like I say this every single year, surely now it's time up for Kimi Räikkönen. The Finn is by no means a bad driver, though Alfa now have Giovinazzi to provide the experience the team needs going forward. So Kimi's argument for staying there is getting, well, weaker and weaker. Gio's seat is currently being controlled by Ferrari, and though I don't think they'll want the Italian to fill that spot for another year, I can see Alfa keeping Jesus in place of Kimi, while another Ferrari junior steps up alongside him. As for who this is, it's really up in the air. But for me, the 3 candidates from last year spring to mind again. Callum Ilott is now their test and reserve driver as well as under Ferrari management. Many felt he was robbed of an F1 chance by Mr. Touchy-Feely here, though being honest, I think he might have dodged a bullet given the state of the Haas car. Alternatively, Ferrari could choose to promote Mick Schumacher, though this in itself is a big risk. Haas, if their gamble to focus solely on 2022 pays off, are expected to make a big leap forward next season. And finally, there's Robert Schwartzman, who's been a frontrunner in Formula 2 over the last couple of seasons, and could very easily take the crown in 2021. If he can learn how to qualify. In the end, I'm going to take a bit of a gamble and say Ferrari moves Schumacher up into that seat alongside Giovinazzi next season, which gives him more of a benchmark to compare himself against as far as a teammate is concerned. And before you go to the comments and say that Mick has signed on to Haas for next year already, yes, he technically is, but as we learnt last year, contracts mean all these days. Speaking of Haas, there's now obviously a seat left open there, and while many might jump to Callum Ilott, I think they've learned that experience is really what they need right now. Since the so-called American team is basically a Russian one by this point, a Russian driver who also has experience would tick all of their boxes, and that then points to one specific person. Daniel Kvyat. The man may have been fired by Red Bull more times than Nikita Mazepin has put it in the wall this season, but Kvyat has always showed some rapid pace over his career, especially in the tail end of last season. The Russian also has expressed an interest in returning to the sport, so Haas could be the perfect fit for him. Now, yes, there is also Dickhead to talk about, though sadly I think it's fairly obvious that he'll be staying put next year. Right, finally we've got Williams, and with Georgie Boy making the step up to Mercedes, we have at least one spot open at the Grove-based team. Latifi, I feel, has done enough to stay, and I think is growing year on year, though the driver who ends up alongside him is a bit harder to call. Bottas could end up going back to the team where he made his F1 debut, though I feel the step from Merc to Williams is so steep he'd probably die of fall damage on the way down. The alternative then would be to look at Williams' young driver pool, and each driver there has a good argument for and against getting into that seat. Jack Aitken performed well in his one-off appearance in Sakhir last year, though hasn't really been rapid in F2 over the last couple of seasons either. Dan Ticktum's arguably the quickest of the bunch, but is so polarising he's effectively the motorsport equivalent of Donald Trump. And finally there's Roy Nissany, who has a lot of money, just no talent. It's really a guessing game at this point, and honestly, I'm kind of torn between Bottas and Ticktum alongside Latifi next year. Now, frankly, I've rewritten the script here more times than F1 Twitter have tried to cancel Dan Ticktum, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give the Brit a miss and opt for experience at Williams in Bottas. And that then brings an end to my thoughts on what the driver market could look like at the end of this season. Do let me know whether you agree or disagree down in the comments below. Looking back, I have kept a lot of drivers where they are, but if you think about it, with the 2022 rules changes, the running order could switch up massively, so changing colours only to watch your old team shoot up the grid is a real risk. That said, given my accuracy with predictions in the last few years, expect Mazepin to Mercedes any day now. Anyway, if you are new to the channel and enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe for even more content like this in the future. You can also follow me over on Twitter and join our growing Discord community, and all links to that you can find down in the description below. Anyway, that is all from me. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next one.